19. So let's go back to nutrient density so I can stop ranting about fruit for once in my life, okay? First, we're going to talk about climate change, because people think that climate change is a thing of modern man. It's simply not, right? We're talking about releasing carbon into the atmosphere. This has been happening for a very long time. In fact, since agriculture began, humans have been releasing carbon into the air and contributing to climate change. This began somewhere around 10,000 to 13,000 years ago. Now again, you got to pick up the book, The Soil Will Save Us, because you can learn this stuff in depth. Now, the old images you see of farmers plowing the land with an animal pulling the plow, whatever, they were disrupting soil and releasing trapped carbon in the soil into the air. So it enters the deep atmosphere at some point, right? Now, we just do that more efficiently now with machines. And yet, by polls, some 70% of farmers don't believe in climate change, period. So this is the only somewhat political statement I will make tonight. The side, whatever side, pushing towards climate change doesn't exist or man has no impact on it has absolutely got to stop, right? There's a bazillion ways in which we impact the amount of carbon in the atmosphere, and as long as scientists have been tracking, carbon dioxide has steadily climbed in the atmosphere. So forget about warming versus cooling, temperature, all these things. If you just track carbon dioxide in the air, it's been steadily climbing as long as scientists have been tracking it. But here's the really weird fact. These things like tilling up soil, releasing carbon into the air, a lot of farmers back in ancient times did crop burning. They would slash and burn their crops, all these things, right? This leads to things taking place like deforestation. However, we think that these are problems of modern man and our big scary machines, but of all the global deforestation that has taken place over the last 1,000 years, 75% of it occurred before the year 1850, okay? The carbon footprint of our ancestors per person was actually greater than it is now per person. So think about it. Farmers back in the day just wanted to survive and not starve to death. So they did whatever it took to get more crops, higher yield of crops. They don't care about micronutrient density. They didn't know about micronutrient density. They just wanted a greater yield of crops. They had zero understanding of soil microbiology, which is what we're going to talk about here. It's not really their fault. They just didn't know, right? So early humans were so hard on the land that they literally created deserts out of what was once lush ecosystems. So an example of this is Libya. Libya had rich soils and an abundance of natural springs in the 5th century BC. Today, it is mostly desert, okay? Because humans just destroyed it with some of the practices we're going to talk about, some of the practices that we still have going on today, just far more efficiently with machinery. So this is going to be a really quick lesson on how soil works, okay? All right, so let's say we have the ground, okay? So we have the ground, we have a plant. This is a plant, right? Plant has roots. I'm not a drawer, I'm not an illustrator, okay? Plant has roots, there's sunlight and sky. Everybody's happy, right? So, here's what happens. Plants sequester carbon from the atmosphere. They sequester CO2, they also take in water, they also take in sunlight, right? So what they do is they take that, like CO2, they take H2O, right? Sunlight, boom. They do all this, and through photosynthesis, turns those elements into sugars, carbohydrates. That's literally what happens, okay? So they create carbs. So they take the carbon, they sequester carbon from the atmosphere, and they create sugar out of it, literally. Carbohydrates, these plant molecules, are literally sugar. That's what we say. All carbohydrates are processed the same way in the body. They eventually turn to glucose, right? They're taking carbon out of the air, and they're creating sugar out of it. But here's what you don't see happening underground. Plants are deeply rooted, or should be deeply rooted, in an interconnected web of mycorrhizal fungi, okay? Literally fungus, fungi, mushrooms. This is called mycorrhizal fungi, all throughout the ground, everywhere, right? It's a net, it's a web. It's this interconnected web of these mycorrhizal fungi, right? All throughout the ground. Now this fungi can connect plants with one another up to 250 yards away. It's like a big giant spider web of fungi. Everywhere beneath your feet is this mycorrhizal fungi. Everywhere. You're walking on it all the time. And they have a beneficial relationship with plants. So plants give away up to 40% of that carbon that they pull from the atmosphere in the form of these carbohydrates, they're giving it to the mycorrhizal fungi. They're literally feeding the mycorrhizal fungi. Now, why would they do this? They give away the carbon from the atmosphere to feed the fungi directly, and in return, the fungi actually penetrates the roots of the plant and feeds the plant. It feeds the plant's enzymes and micronutrients that the plant needs to grow and thrive, okay? It's crazy. These fungi literally penetrate into the roots of the plant and they feed them enzymes and micronutrients to grow the same way that human beings need enzymes and micronutrients to grow. It works the same way, right? It's a beneficial relationship between plants and fungi, okay? It's one of the most beautiful things you can imagine, if you ask me. It's unbelievable. Scientists today estimate that over 80% of all the world's plants are wrapped up in this interconnected web of mycorrhizal fungi. Really unbelievable. Mushrooms are an incredible thing. It's almost like they're an alien species that are here to help us, right?